of all, thank you all for being here today. For our gubernatorial and lieutenant governor candidates, we're going to give them a chance to be introduced, a chance to spend about 5 minutes talking about why they're running and what their platform is. And then I'm going to ask them a couple of questions, and then we'll have another candidate come up. So we've got 4 candidates here this morning and representatives. So we'll start off with Attorney General Jim Hood. He grew up here in North Mississippi in Chickasaw County as an avid hunter and sportsman, father of 3, graduate of the University of Mississippi undergraduate and law school, served as a clerk with the Mississippi Supreme Court, Assistant Attorney General, and District Attorney for the Mississippi's 3rd Judicial District. Please welcome with me Attorney General Jim Hood. Jim? Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's go right out front there.
Well, thank you. I have, I've been in enough courtrooms up here. I think my voice carries well enough. Maybe I don't necessarily need this. Hopefully, all y'all in the back can hear me good enough. Well, I was driving up here this morning. I think how many fond memories I have in this area. You know, this being a trade area. I grew up in Holcomb, Mississippi. Actually, it's just north of Houston, a little town. And I remember my first memories of my mother dragging me in the corner shoe store downtown. Remember when they used to make kids wear those old hard white sole shoes, you know, the white shoes. And then, of course, she dragged me across the street to Reed's, you know, and we shopped and done business. I think I got on y'all suits here today. Yeah, it is. You know, it's good to be in this area. Then I got sitting here by my sister Beth, and I remember Mom taking us to a doctor, and Beth got a shot. She runs down the hallway crying, you know. So I'm trying to figure out, am I supposed to be afraid or what, you know? But it's just Dr. Thorpe, I think. Anyway, I just have so many good memories of being up here and growing up in this area. This race for governor is, you know, everybody's ever run for some office has said this is the most important race. This is a cornerstone for our state, you know, as to what we're going to do going forward. Are we going to keep our kids here? This race is about the economy, and it's about keeping our kids here. You know, we've lost more kids of any state in the union the past 6 years. Our economy has been flat. We've grown at a rate of 2%. And that's the literal facts of 2%. Tennessee's grown at a rate of 24%, Arkansas at a rate of 14%, Alabama at 11%. What we're doing is not working. That's why our kids are leaving here. So many of them have incurred college debt because college debt has gone up. I mean, college tuition at 4-year universities from $4,000 a semester when I took office in 2004 to $8,500, and it went up again. Our kids are loaded with debt. They cannot come back to a 2-lane road town like I'm from, you know, unless their parents own a business or they got a professional degree. So what we've got to do is some things that I think would spur some economic development in our area, in our state in particular, in our area. One of those is road build. You know, we need to build public roads, not private driveways, is what I'm talking about. That's 8,000 jobs that would create working people swinging hammers. That's the way you move the economy up. You know, these promised tax cuts are supposed to spur the economy, and it hadn't. It just hadn't worked. Traditionally, it hadn't worked. Some areas it does in economic development. But, you know, we can build roads, 8,000 people swinging hammers. That's how you can get the economy moving. And I was encouraged by Republicans and Democrats to run. I'd go over there on the House floor. I mean, I represent all of them. I'd go on the House or Senate floor and talk to legislators. Of course, a lot of Republicans would ease up to me and they'd say, well, you know, me and my family are for you, but don't you tell it, you know, that type of thing. Because many of them know what we've been doing is not working, but the votes were there for road bill. We will pass a road bill. The second one that will create some stimulus is expanding health care. That's 10,000 jobs. That's $1 billion into our economy, injected into our economy, which will create over $100 million in additional tax revenues. And if you don't care about those 300,000, they're actually working people. Maybe some of them, you know, got laid off, but they'll end up back in the workforce. 300,000 people. If you don't care from the heart about those people, you ought to care about the economics of it. Because the best paying jobs in rural communities like mine and here as well are in a medical clinic, physical therapist office. Those are the best paying jobs, and that would create an economic boom to our state and help us. Like, you know, down at Houston, we lost our emergency room about 5 years ago. 7 months or so ago, a young lady, 22 years old now, she had an asthma attack. And the hospital's still open, so her family raced her up there in the middle of the night. Emergency room's closed to get her back to downtown Houston to the fire department, and she died on the street of Houston, Mississippi. You know, my grandfather practiced medicine in the emergency room in Houston, Mississippi, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Not the same hospital that was there in Houston, but You know, put that in perspective. We had better emergency rural health care in 1950 than we have today in these rural towns, and that's what affects factories that want to move in there. You know, I had furniture factories and different industry that moved in there. That's going to affect their insurance rates. And so what we've got to do is do 2 tracks on economic development. One for the 2-lane highway road towns. Well, we're hoping technology will be the answer to that. And because, you know, you take a kid that wants to develop an app, and you don't have to build infrastructure to do that. It could be 8 people in an old house over in Oklahoma, you know, building some type of technology job. So that's what we're hope is on 2-lane road towns. Of course, we would promote manufacturing in other parts of the state. Education, and I've got just a few minutes to go through this, so they put us on the timeline. But on education, I wanted to see us do 4K education. We can do the first year, $31 million. Early childhood education is the best economic development dollar a state can spend. We need to pay our teachers Southeastern average. We need to fund our schools, and we need to do like we're doing in our 5 counties up here. And the Northeast District's doing it now. We need to provide free community college statewide, like Tennessee copied us. They're doing that statewide. And that's huge for those job skills and do apprenticeships along with that. There are a couple of other things that we need to change, and I think we need to cut the grocery tax for working people. They've been kicked to the curb. There needs to be some tax breaks for working people. And I think we got to clean up the legislature. That's 5 issues I'm running on, and this last one is a tough one. I don't know that votes are there, but we can use the bully pulpit of the governor's office to make sure that we change what we're doing. Because what we need to do is stop them from taking money during the legislative session, campaign contributions. We need to bar corporate contributions. We need to stop them from taking gifts. And most importantly, we need to make them subject to the Open Records Act like all the rest of us are. Like other statewide elected officials and people, alderpersons and supervisors. All of our records are open. If we have their records open, it would deter a lot of activity that we're seeing, because what they're doing is a regular old millionaire can't influence that leadership anymore in the legislature. Not our individual members. It's an iron-fisted rule down there. And it takes a billionaire. The big box stores, the managed care outfits, that's who's benefited from these tax cuts. They've given away our money, the reason we don't have money for roads and bridges now. There's a lot of other issues I'd like to discuss that got me on a timeline, and I've gone beyond it. I think we're going to
give you a question. You've used a little bit of your time for questions, but you talked about economic development and kind of where we are in comparison to other states. In North Mississippi, you know, plant creation, job creation, plant expansion, it's a big deal for us, and it's what we live off of. We still have 21% of our workforce in Lee County that's manufacturing, which is about 3 times the national average. So tell me what your Mississippi Development Authority looks like under your purview as governor, potentially.
I'm going to make sure that we hire a professional director who understands and has worked their career in economic development. Our model will be a little bit different. You know, we'll still go for the larger manufacturing outfits like Toyota. I mean, but these roads that we built in this education system here in Tupelo is the reason that they cite. No manufacturing outfit's going to come look at you if you hadn't got a 4-lane highway and a school nearby the executives want to send their kids to. Our economic development model will be more to try to help our Mississippi businesses grow jobs rather than spending all the money, all the economists agree, you don't have to spend as much money on infrastructure. And, you know, it may be 30 years for those jobs to pay out. I want to see us create jobs at our local businesses, encourage that. You know, Main Street business has been kicked to the curb. I mean, it took years. I've tried to get the legislature to pass the internet sales tax. Finally, we attorneys general won that case at the United States Supreme Court, allowing us to require out-of-state companies to collect the internet sales tax. But the legislature, they weren't about to do it, and the votes were there to have done that if the leadership would allow them to. So the model that I anticipate us following is which particular town, what area you're in. I mean, if you want to do technology, maybe it's drones in the Delta because of agriculture. That's one of the main uses of drones. But I want to see us do apprenticeships through the community colleges so that kids are out working and they're going to school. My son's doing it over here at Belden right now. And my daughter went to Itawamba, and then she went on and graduated at Ole Miss. But that's such an important aspect to our workforce development. And so our model will be smaller, but we'll still continue to try to find the larger industries to come in our state. But I'm going to depend on, and I should be listening to you economic development folks, you know, people that get paid. And I think that position, I don't know what Glenn makes, but it's not enough. And many of them who are in different areas make more, I think. we're going to have to pay that position more. We're going to have to spend some more time. But I want us to do more on tourism. That's going to be a huge, I hope those revenues will surpass gaming, hopefully in the next 10 years or so. And so I want us to promote a lot of other type of industries in our state.
You talked about infrastructure development, roads and infrastructure. Tell me a little bit about how you might finance that from the state standpoint.
The votes have been there. I think the votes were there if they put it on some method. In the legislature, when I go over and talk to them, I don't know who's going to get elected. It's going to be pretty much the same legislature we've had. It'll be conservative. So when somebody tells you, something about liberal this, liberal that, nothing liberal is going to get through that legislature. But I do know this, the votes are there for a road bill. So first thing I say what we ought to do, what I would suggest, is that we stop the bleeding. We've given away $750 million of our tax money over the past 8 years, and we haven't seen our revenues increase as a result of that. And so what I say that we need to make sure that we've got people that are capable in positions to make a difference.
Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Attorney General Jim Hood. Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Tax schedule, I had an urgent meeting, and so I'm probably going to have to leave here pretty quick, but I've enjoyed visiting with y'all earlier. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a representative for Tate Reeves today. We've got Pat and his wife Sandra Nunley have been married for a long, long time. They passed this tradition and qualities of sportsmanship and good gentlemanship down to their son, U.S. Representative Alan Nunley. May you rest in peace. Please welcome to Tupelo Representative of Tate Reeves' campaign for governor, Mr. Pat Nunley. Pat?
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you again,
Thank
sir.
you.
I'm going to let you use the microphone because we're doing a little recording, and if you use the microphone, we can hear you.
Okay. Some time ago, I was speaking to a group, and the fellow in the back said, I can't hear you. The guy in the front said, I can hear quite well. I'll trade places with you. So those of you in the back that can't hear me, there's some folks right in the front that would be glad to trade places with you. You wonder what in the world, and I'm wondering the same thing, what am I doing here? I feel like a fish out of water being with this group today. I guess I wonder what I'm doing here. I'm kind of like some time ago I got a call. A lady called me and she said, asked me to speak, and I said, I'm sure you can find someone that can do a better job than I can. She said, no, we've already called all them. One lady called me. She said, we've got a banquet scheduled tomorrow night. The speaker just canceled. Do you reckon Alan would come speak to our banquet? I said, I'm sure he would, but Alan's out of town. She said, Pat, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Could you possibly come? I said, be glad to. I guess one of the most unusual ones I got, you wonder why Tate Reeves is not here. I think he had other commitments. Some time ago I got called, wanted me to speak to the Vardaman Sweet Potato Festival. I was so impressed. I was so honored. They said, usually we get the governor or the lieutenant governor. We get a congressman. We get a senator. This time we wanted a business person to come speak. I looked, I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so honored, but I'm so sorry. I've got other commitment. Can't you cancel that? Well, I could, but it would not be right. Well, they meet every week. I told them where I was. They meet every week. We only meet once a year. Well, I said my honor would be at stake. If I canceled, somebody else might want me to cancel yours. So I guess that's why I'm here today. I don't know why they asked me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a candidate for any office in the world. In fact, I'm not looking for any appointment. I'm perfectly happy doing what I'm doing every day. I'm a business owner. I'm a CDF member. I'm a husband. I'm a father, grandfather, and yes, a great-grandfather. I'm a proud Mississippian. I grew up on a small farm in Pontotoc County in Mississippi. The people in Mississippi have been good to me, and I have been honored and blessed to educate 7 children. My wife got her nursing degree when she was 37 years old. One of my children spent a year in the former Soviet Union. On Christmas Eve, one of her students showed up at our house with $300, a 6-year visa, and everything she owned in a small suitcase. And we educated her. We educated her twice. She got her degree at MUW. Then she wanted to be a physical therapist, and we sent her to physical therapy school. So I've educated 9 people. I know what education is all about. And that's why I am so honored to be here today. I'm 83 years old. I tell people every morning at the post office, you see, my job at work, I go in and make the coffee. I go to the post office, I distribute the mail. And Lisa came to me one day and said, Dad, we'd like to have a Keurig in the office. I said, Lisa, I don't mind, but there goes half my job. So that's what I'm 83 years old. I tell people every morning, if I get up in the morning and put both feet on the floor and dress myself, I've had a good day. I have been blessed beyond measure. And my goal in life is to leave our communities, to leave our state, to leave our churches, to leave our families and our businesses a little better than I found it. And that's what I work for every day. It's easy. It's easy for you and I to sit on the sidelines. And we've done that for the last 4.5 years. We're not a political family. My family had never been involved in politics. When Alan said, I'm going to run for the Mississippi Senate, we couldn't believe it. We didn't know anything about politics. And we've been on the sidelines for the past 4.5 years, but we determined it's time for us to speak out. It takes courage to fight for our values, what we believe in, and what we do. And that's why I am proud to stand with Tate Reeves for governor. We need to send a message that conservative leadership works. Our state is one to be proud of as we seek ways to continually improve things in Mississippi. We need a governor who relies on private sector, not the government. My grandson, Clark Wise, wrote an article that was published, can you believe it was published in the Clarion Ledger recently? And here's what part of his article. There's a narrative in Mississippi politics that money is the solution. And in fact, most disciples of that philosophy will tell you the amount of money needed to fix the issue is more money. If you're opposed to higher taxes, you believe in that government, like the rest of us, should prioritize spending to fit within a budget, then Tate Reeves is your man. Tate Reeves is my candidate, and he's my family's candidate. He's worked alongside Governor Brown to deliver conservative wins such as jobs, education reform, lower taxes, Second Amendment protection, and religious liberty. That's why grassroots leaders like President Trump's 2016 win are standing with Tate Reeves. He's demonstrated the ability to say no when he had to, and yes when it was important, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's why my family and I stand with Tate Reeves. Mississippi's values are Mississippi's strength. Our values are worth fighting for. He wants to lead Mississippi toward a future where everyone can thrive. We want to work toward better paying jobs, better schools, better communities, and yes, as individuals, we want to work for better churches. We're proud of the economic development of our state. We have more jobs than we've ever had in the history of Mississippi. We're outpacing the nation in education improvement. We're not where we want to be, but we're making progress. We're growing stronger every day because of the conservative reforms that our legislature led by Tate Reeves, they have delivered. We want to say no to expanding Obamacare and to raising taxes. We want to stand up to politicians whose liberal agendas and policies are not reflective of our values. Elections have consequences, and policy matters. I know Tate will be spending a lot of time in North Mississippi. He'll be back. He wishes he could have been here this morning, but he had other commitments. I hope you'll get to meet him. I hope you'll get to know him. If you do not already, I hope you will. He knows that you and I know what's going on in Mississippi. It's not just those people in the shadows of the Capitol in Jackson, like we're told by some people, they know what's going on. We know what's going on here. I'm proud to support Tate Reeves. He's a good man, a family man. He loves our state. He cares about our people. He's been a conservative warrior standing up for our values, and under his leadership, I know we can count on Tate to help our state grow stronger and help us all live a better life. In closing, I want to share with you, I want you to pray for Tate's family. Pray for all of these politicians' family. I've been there. I know what it's like. Things will be said about them. Things will be said to them that people don't mean. One person said to Alan, "You'd make a lot of people happy if you got killed on the Natchez Trace Parkway." They didn't mean that. But in the heat of battle, that's what they say. One person said to Alan, they knew Alan's stand on pro-life. One person said to Alan, "I hope if your daughter ever gets pregnant, she and the baby both die in childbirth." Now let me tell you, candidates can take those darts, but we need to pray for their families. They're the ones that are hurting. Pray for his children. Pray for Tate's wife. And pray for his mother. See, mothers can't take that. When she sees Tate, when he walks in, he's not the governor. He's not the lieutenant governor. He's her little boy Tate. And it bothers her beyond end to hear people say things that are not true. So I ask you to pray for his family, because they're certainly going to need it in the next 60 days. So in closing, I ask you, let's join hands and hearts and minds and resources, and let's elect Tate Reeves as governor for the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Nunley.
No
Appreciate
question.
you
No
so much.
question.
No questions
No question.
needed.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you and your family. We're always mindful of Alan, for sure. Now, so we move from the governor's candidates to lieutenant governor candidates. I want to introduce to you State Representative Jay Hughes from Oxford, Mississippi, with a degree in business and economics from Nichols State University and a law degree from Ole Miss Law School. He's an attorney in Oxford. Served in the Army in 1981 to 84, qualifies as expert marksman. Started in politics in 2013 as an alderman of Ward 1. That's when I first met Jay. His education is a key to Mississippi's future is his theme. So Mr. Jay Hughes, representative for lieutenant governor. Jay? Thank you, sir.
Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm Jay Hughes, and I have applied to be your lieutenant governor for the next 4 years. And I do so when people ask me, why is it that you want to do that? My gosh, particularly my wife. And I said, well, I want to make a difference. I've been down there, and I've seen what happens, and then I see what people say. And I see the same statistics that General Hood just said, and then I see what other politicians talk about that's going on. And it reminds me of what my granddad used to say, is that just because you put your boots in the oven, it don't make them biscuits. So the reality is that we do have trouble here that we need. It's not that Mississippi's not good. It is good. But I believe in an even better Mississippi. So what I've done is, instead of just hiring campaign consultants and trying to do this or that and figure out what's to say or doing polls, I got in an RV. We call it the Imagine Wagon. It's out front. And I've gone 80,000 miles asking people what matters to them and their communities. And I think it's really important to do that, because if you ask someone what matters to them and you listen, they will tell you. Now, the same issues are there today that have always been there, and that is public schools, roads and bridges, health care. You don't have to belabor the point when you just go to someone and ask them, and I did that. I was down in Clara, Mississippi on J.A. Lynch Road, and I knocked on a door to an older woman, and I said, my name's Jay Hughes, and I'm running for lieutenant governor, and I'd like to know what's important to you. And it absolutely stunned her. She said, I've never been asked that. And then she started tearing up and crying, and it turns out what was important to her was addiction. Her son worked in the oil field, got injured, got hooked on opioids, and she buried his 37-year-old self about 2 months before I got there. See, we have real issues in Mississippi, and ignoring them does not fix them. Public education, we all know there's too much testing. We need to let the teachers teach. Our job is to educate children and make them smarter, not testing companies richer. Our job is to honor our faith. Everyone talks about being a Christian when I get down in the legislature and I hear it. But what I don't hear is the reality of Matthew 25:40. What you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you do for me. We see headlines every single day. Oh, we'll have a governor with a golden shovel bragging about the $200 million that came in from the federal government to build this port or this building that has a name on it of a politician. But when it comes to taking a federal dollar to save a human life, they don't want that. Now, I disagree with that, and I have personal experience. My mother worked her life off as a truck driver, 6'1", red hair, smoked Camel no filters, and carried a .44. You know what? I learned respect early too. And but those Camel no filters got her, and she ultimately died in the back of an ambulance on the way to a hospital that was 3 miles too far away. Because you see, health care is a matter of life and death. And for communities like General Hood's and 4 others that have no ER, that's life and death. So, am I for health care reform? Absolutely, because it's also economic development. It is those high-paying jobs. And the reality is, in these 80,000 miles, the song, I used to say that my theme song would be, I've been everywhere, man. But now I say it's Heartbreak Hotel, because there's a disconnect. And the greatest disconnect in Mississippi is not between the Republicans and the Democrats. It's between the career politicians and the working man and woman who all they want, they don't know what we're doing in Jackson, and quite frankly, they don't care. Y'all are here, and that's awesome, but I remember talking to one guy as a porter, and his name is George, and I was leaving the Capitol. It was a very frustrating legislative session, and I put my arm on Joel's shoulder as we were looking out over South Jackson from the Capitol, and I said, George, what do you think the people think about what we did this year? And he said, Jay, I'll be honest with you, they don't even know y'all were here. Because what's happening is they're worried about putting food on the table. They're worried about their kids doing better than they did. And the reality is, education is the greatest equalizer we have that no one can take, no one can steal. And we can pretend all day long that our kids and grandkids aren't leaving and going to another state. The reality is they are. And they're not going to come back to Mississippi, as General Hood said, to a 2-lane road without internet, because they all live on this. They stream everything. We've got to make a Mississippi that has a road sign at every state line that says, welcome to Mississippi, instead of what it says now, which is welcome to Mississippi, kinda. We want everybody. We need that diversity. So what I will do is I will govern with my life experience. Growing up poor, knowing what it's like to go to bed hungry, knowing what it's like to watch a parent go to the pawn shop with my dad's guns so that we can keep the electricity on in the wintertime. I remember these things every day. I've been blessed from from signing the back of a check to the front of a paycheck. But what I do is I will govern with respect, humility, and compromise. The 3 things that make a marriage work, that makes a business work, and used to make politicians work. We've got to get back to that instead of my way or the highway. So what I will leave you with is this. What I have are my values, morals, and rules that I grew up with and learned in my church, in my house, and in the United States Army. And those are, I am pro-life, but pro-entire life, meaning we've got to be there when that child is born. Highest infant mortality rate, health of the mother, education, early childhood education, quality jobs. Another thing is, I'm pro-Second Amendment, gun owner and carrier, always have been. Volunteer substitute teacher. I've been blessed enough that I donate my legislative salary back to my public schools every year. The value of public education, because every day of my education was spent in a public classroom. And I believe that that is the greatest economic development tool we have. With those things, what I want to do is bring respect and transparency back to the Capitol, because transparency has left the Capitol and it took common sense with it. I humbly ask you to vote for the person, not the party. I'm Jay Hughes. God bless you, and may I please have your consideration on November the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. You got a couple of questions if you got time. So tell me a little bit, I mean, you're from a very successful place in Oxford, Mississippi that's done extremely well economically with commercial development, small business development. So tell me how that experience is going to translate to your tenure at
Well, I would say that it's been successful for many, but also not successful for some. Appearances aren't everything, as we've now learned. We have the greatest divide achievement gap in our school system because half of our students are Title I on free and reduced lunch. Mm-hmm. We do have poverty issues and homeless there. So when you think about economic development, you have to think about the whole community. I think about economic development for 82 counties instead of just 4 or 5 lucky ones, for 290 cities instead of just 5 or 6. What we've done in Oxford, there are 2 schools of thought on economic development, and I subscribe to the latter. There is one called the Whale, and that's where you go out and you spend everything and give away the farm to try to get one company that you say is going to have trickle down. We all remember that trickle word. And then in Oxford, what we have employed is called the tropical fish approach. And that's where you go after the employers that have 20, 30, 40 people, and you sprinkle those around and they grow, and you invest in local businesses. And I'm proud to say that the vast majority of businesses that have grown in Oxford have been locally owned businesses or state of Mississippi owners. That's the way I see economic development. I also see it by getting politics out of it and quit appointing people as a political favor into the development authority and hire professionals that are certified that that's what they do for a living. And they're looking to improve the community, not their resume.
That's a good answer. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Jay Hughes.
Thank you very much.
And now our Secretary of State, Delbert Hosemann, is an avid marathoner. He's completed both the New York and Boston marathons, born and raised in Warren County, Mississippi, Vicksburg, undergraduate degree from Notre Dame, law school degree from Ole Miss, and studies in New York. Served in the U.S. Army, married 49 years to his wife, Lynn, 3 kids and 7 grandkids. A busy man, Delbert Hosemann.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. It's good to be with everybody today. I often start early. I'll tell you this quick story and then I'll get on our time, but I often start early when I come out to places. So I'm in Corinth the other day. I go to the railroad pit stop there for breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning. I sit down and the sheriff's there and the circuit clerk's there and 2 or 3 supervisors and 2 or 3 people who ran for supervisor and all this other. And so I sit down across from a guy named Rick Quinn. And Rick looks at me. I just put my plate down. He says, I just want you to know one thing. I said, yes, sir. He said, I didn't vote for you. I said, well, I appreciate that. He said, no, I just want you to know I didn't vote for you the last time. I said, Rick, I am so glad to have the opportunity to visit with you because I want to apologize to you for taking you off the voter roll. It's tough out there. I'm just telling you. About a month and a half later, I'm back in Corinth. And so Rick's at the place. We stopped for breakfast. Everybody's loaded up in there. And Rick said, hey, how are you doing? I said, I'm good. It's good to see you again. He said, we got a place right over here for you to sit at our table. I said, that'd be great. So I sat down. There were 7 tickets for breakfast already at my place to pay for them. So you got to be careful about who you're messing with. When I started, took about 2 weeks to do an LLC or a corporation in Mississippi. It takes about 2 minutes now. We've had total business reform since I took over. I started something called Y'all Business, which has won 10 national and international awards. I analyzed every county in Mississippi, what your economics are, what your demographics are, and then we bought the consumer data. So you can tell how many banks there are, how many restaurants there are, what the businesses are, how many people drive down the street. All the information I know for a small business needs to be successful is now on Y'all Business, the only one in the country. At our place, we answer 65,000 phone calls a year. Every Monday morning, I get a report. We answer 98% of them within 10 seconds with a live person who's glad you called. And the reason we do that is because we want to run our business like you run your business. We have, we've been very careful about our budget. My budget this year is less than the day I started 12 years ago. And I just turned back to the general fund $1.5 million from the budget that was less than the day I started before. We have been very, very, very cognizant of the fact we need to run our agency and run it for the taxpayer and the people that pay our salaries, and we're very cognizant of that. We work really hard on 16th section land. Y'all don't have any 16th section land up here. When we bought the Chickasaw Session in 1830, y'all sold all your 16th section land. Some of that money was invested in Confederate railroad bonds. Now, if those mature, you're going to be rich. I'm just telling you. At 2% a year for 150 years, the bankers are here. They'll tell you it's a lot of money. What we did was we settled to give you part of the money that we raise in the other 60 counties in Mississippi. When I started, 10 years before I started, we had raised about $650 million in those 10 years. The years that I've had it, we have raised over $1 billion for public education, an increase of over $400 million. And let me tell you what that means to Lee County. When I started, y'all were getting $729,165 a year. Now, the last 2 years, you have averaged $1.18 million, an increase of $455,000 per year from the work we've done on making sure that 16th section land is leased at a fair value. So it's really important to us to say to you that when we run something, we try to do it just like you do. We try to run it well. And it's been an honor for us to be as Secretary of State for the last 12 years, and we've enjoyed it. Where are we going here? I want to speak very specifically about. We are going to have pre-K education in Mississippi starting next year. It is the way we plant the seeds for the future. This part of our state is so good about that. Y'all think forward, and I'm thinking where we're going to be not next year, but where we're going to be in 2030. And I want Mississippi's future to be bright in 2030. That's our children. I have 7 grandchildren. Where are they going to work? Who are they going to work for? Where are you going to prosper? So the things we do, planting those seeds pre-K, we'll have a salary increase for the teachers the very first year. We're going to bring our teachers back up, not only to the average. I'm not held to an average. I want to bring them up to where they need to be. They need our compensation, and they need our respect. They deserve both of them. Some of the most important people that we put in front of our children 8 hours or more a day is a teacher, and they need to be honored to do that, both compensated and respect-wise. Not only that, we're going to emphasize career technical. About 25% of our kids actually get a college education. I'd like for that to increase. I was talking to Mr. Allen just a minute ago about that. Career technical is critical to us. Those other 70 or 75% need a meaningful financial position that they can pay for their families and raise their children and have a job that pays them well. That will come out of career technical. These dual credits that you're seeing started by Etowah Community College will spread all over Mississippi. We will emphasize career technical because we need electricians, we need workers, we need people that can do things with their hands. And you'll see that proliferate around Mississippi, and we're going to be a strong supporter of it. We do have infrastructure needs. You'll hear us talking about an infrastructure process as we go forward. I don't believe that we just stop building roads. I mean, where did we come up with the fact that we don't have enough to build any more roads? We've been meeting with our MDOT people on where the prospects are. Most of the roads here have been built. They're great. We're missing some. We're missing New Albany to Ripley. There's several different areas which we will need, and we will build new roads to make ourselves competitive. The largest manufacturer of furniture in the country and the world is sitting right there, and they're working off a 2-lane road. We can't have that and expect economic development to prosper. We will be talking about health care, and we will be discussing the fact nobody needs to be further than 30 minutes from an emergency room and how that works. I think wellness begins when you wake up, not when you're sick. So there will be significant amounts of time and effort spent just on that project itself. And finally, we're going to right-size government. You need to hang with me when we go to do that. We want to make sure that everybody starts with the process that what does a taxpayer need and what does government provide? We don't need duplication. We don't need excesses. We don't need to do anything that doesn't answer that specific question. So I've been working on this for 5 years, some with Mississippi State University and others. We will have a government that's responsive just like our agency is. We can run it better, we can run it more efficiently, and we'll run it by the needs of the taxpayer, not necessarily that we proliferate it like kudzu all over with 207 agency boards and commissions in Mississippi. Difficult task, and when we go about that, we'll need everybody's support. So thank you so much for having us this morning. I appreciate so much having the opportunity to visit with you. So I guess we got some questions,
Yeah,
Dan.
a question.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about, with other candidates and just about how Mississippi's a rural state. There's still a lot of infrastructure to be built, whether it's internet, whether it's highways, whether it's water, sewer, et cetera. Those are needs. How does the legislature work into that process of solving some of those needs for infrastructure?
Well, the first thing that I've been doing for the last 2 or 3 meetings is to look at the structure of how we're delivering the needs. Look at MDOT, how it's operating and what's going on with it. I am very reluctant to increase people's gas tax but until I'm sure that the money's being spent every dollar well. Now, once it's being spent every dollar well, then we'll look at alternative means to fund infrastructure. Part of that needs to be, as we go through right-sizing government, we will free up money. That's how we'll pay for teacher pay raises, and there are other issues there, mental health, and our 85% of our judges, 85% of our people that guard prisoners are making like 25, or females making about $25,000 a year. We have other needs. Infrastructure is a key to me. It's not only the building of the new roads, which I'm telling y'all, we will build new roads in North Mississippi where they need to be constructed, but they also got to be maintained. And the biggest issues we have right now are actually in county roads and with our county supervisors. So you'll see me meeting with supervisors about how we're going to address, the legislature did this last year with $250 million and $80 million hopefully from the lottery, which will start in the next couple of weeks. We'll start funneling that money down to where we can keep our roads that we've got well maintained, but also start addressing the county roads, the ones that need the bridges and are closed where we can't get our kids to school and our products to market. There are ways to do that, and we will be doing that.
Secretary of State Delbert Hosemann, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, sir.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Each of you that are in business, you need to know that I'm coming to see you after November if you hire me. Each of us needs to do one thing for the state. Y'all are so good up here. You have the leading hospital. You've kept your banks. You've kept your newspaper. You've done all the right things, your schools, the fights that we had to be taken. Each of us needs to do just one thing going forward. I'm going to ask businesses to be involved in education. I'm going to ask you to shadow. I'm going to ask you to let kids work for you for the summer. I'm going to ask you to donate your equipment to over there so where they can work and learn. That career technical will come only in unison with you helping us. So if you hire me, you should assume that I'm going to be back to ask you to help education. Each and every business is so important to that kid, so important that they see how you work, that they come on time, that they get the soft skills and the real skills to help them maintain. Teaching can do so much for us, but we still need you. We need you as a mentor, and I'll be back to ask you to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate it very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, thanks to all of our candidates here today, and like Mr. Nunley said, we need to pray for them. I need to pray for their families. I need to pray for the state of Mississippi. But I appreciate all the candidates that have put themselves up for public service. It does take a sacrifice of service, and we understand that, and we appreciate everyone who has posted themselves for a job in the electorate. So again, thank you so much for being there and doing that.